Hey, welcome back. This is Steve Seberg, and I'm asking you to join me and help me write a book. And the book is called Playing the Human Instrument, Re-enchanting the Life You Already Own. Um, what I've got here is basically the outline for the book that we're writing together. Um, and let me quickly review highlight each of these sections to the book. Uh, the introduction will start out with two stories, both of which I think if you've followed this channel, you heard about Stevie and Don. Myself is I think about a 2-year old having a quasi mystical experience, and the resignation and almost defeat of my dad, Don, who on his deathbed told me he didn't think it would turn out that way, which I took in a very broad, actually philosophical uh, assessment of what his life had been and amounted to. Possibly overstating the case, but anyway, I've taken it that way, and my approach to the book and my project here is to help fix that, make it so that hopefully I don't have that kind of feeling at the end of my life. And my hopes for you is that you will not have that outlook either. That you will be delighted with the kind of life you have had. So, breaking down the book into 12 chapters, my my intent is that this video series, this channel, will kind of obligate me, make me feel accountable to do the work that I need to do to get this thing together in printed form so that we can all examine it and check it out and see if it's really something that'll work in life. So anyway, the first chapter has to do with the bubble of perception, the the fact that I am like the knot, KNOT, in the balloon of the chunk of the world that is always present for me and with me whenever I'm awake and aware, alive, and moving about. I've illustrated this with the little Buddha in the balloon, and what I am for myself is not the thing you see on the screen. For myself, I'm behind that or inside of that, not even really inside of it. I am the sensitivity of that and the mover of it in part. Part I'm moved too. I don't beat my own heart. Somehow it happens on its own. But anyway, I am like the gathering point, the pivot, the hub of this whole sphere, and that I claim is the human instrument and not just the biological organism that is encased in skin. And so, anyway, that's my first chapter. Second chapter is about one of the poles, the W side, the world part, the purview itself, and that is basically a series, many sets of contexts, and within each context is nested other deeper contexts, and they're all interrelated. And I'll talk about that further, the nature of that world that we encounter. Then I'm going to talk about what happens as awareness, which is how I'm attached to that world. And I see that as as appearing to me as three different dimensions, three different aspects or energies of awareness that operate within me. The first is the cognitive or intellectual, and that has to do with my understanding. And in fact, everything that we can communicate, we most directly communicate through this cognitive dimension. I'm going to skip over to the V, which is the visceral, and that is my sense of the organism, the meat puppet, the knot in the balloon. And what's interesting about it is that it can be largely ignored, um, but it's always available to us. One of the interesting things to me about much of the media that we occupy our cognitive emotions with, that it requires a certain diminution of our visceral awareness. I mean, we can think of it in terms of a movie theater where they put us in comfortable seats in the dark, and all of our attention is cast upon the screen, and the noises generated by the film itself and that's part of the production. And if you become overly aware of your body, or if you go to the movies with a stomach ache or something like that, you know the the physiological interrupts and disturbs the effects they're trying to create. And then the limbic has to do with what we derive our emotions from. I think the limbic is more basic than emotions, and we name certain limbic states depending on our cognitive and visceral states that combine with it. But it's basically uh, resonance, being attuned to what's there and how you are. Synchrony, which is not as vibrant as as is resonance. It's kind of a loss of energy. And then it goes to asynchrony, where the energy is lost even further, and finally into dissonance. And what happens if you give it time and you don't fight the process, it'll resolve itself to resonance again. And in fact, there are also similar structure to the cognitive and the visceral, and that leads us to the next area that I'll discuss, which is cyclicity, the cycles that govern the me part of awareness, that me pole in the WM world me structure. So that is sort of like the core elements of the human apparatus. How it goes to work, what it does in action, is it generates narrative. And I have trouble really putting a cognitive container to really express narrative, because I have to use narrative to talk about narrative, and that's always a slippery sort of thing. But somehow or another, and it's not even somehow or another, it is what we do. The why and how is not as important as a that and the way that operates in our lives. But we cast everything in narrative. It's what we tell each other and tell ourselves and interpret the world. All of that comes into narrative. Narrative then is can be largely classified into two broad categories, which I have labeled P plus and P minus. And P plus is pleasure, P minus is pain. And we generally describe and are motivated and involve ourselves in trying to move out of P minus, out of pain, into pleasure. And what I will argue in the next section, I'm going to describe that for a bit in section 6, but here I will talk about the crutch that cripples, and and this movement trying to push P minus in back into P plus creates all kinds of dependencies, and it creates the frustrations and the resignation that befell Don. He tried to change his life into something positive, where we get down to this next section, which is choose your pain, CYP. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually the way to uh, arrive at P plus in spite of the difficulties. So after describing these, what I'm going to then do, so what we've got is, this is how it works, and this is how you can work the system to help yourself re-enchant your life. So we've got here the structure, we've got the structure in action, and this bottom section here is going to deal with, okay, how can you take advantage of this structure and its way of operating so that you can have a life that where you play the instrument rather than what you get played by it. And chapter 9 deals with gathas, how to transform gathas into giptus. And this, if you're successful and when you do it, your life hums along, and it's the hum of humanity. So we've got the gathas, which are basically the axis of trouble, and when you change their characteristics, so you generate this hum, uh, you are on the axis of beauty, which brings you, which is the goal of playing the instrument, to play something beautiful. It doesn't have to be necessarily happy. It can be sad but beautiful. It can be tragic but beautiful, or it can be triumphant and beautiful, or none of those things. Just plain pretty, just nice to be. So I talk about a couple of concepts in this section: the jazz sensibility, which I'll explain more fully later, and then the notion of easy motion, which has been one of the talismans for my exploration over these past 50 years. So uh, the big challenge will come when we get to talk about work and the public trough, and then finally the resolution. The point of all this is to talk about the possibility for delight, which comes from the re-enchantment of the life you already own. And I'll be referring to some people and some situations which I talk about modern masters of delight. So that's the structure I'm going to work with, and the challenge I've posed to myself, and I wish to address to you as well, and it's going to help me stay accountable, I hope, is for me to write 10 statements, first of all, on each of these chapter topics, and from there on, I will discuss those with you as they come to fruition. And hopefully this will get the book written, and then we can edit it and we can put it out there, and we can argue about it, and we can celebrate it, or whatever it is we want to do. So I apologize for being delayed a bit in this video, but I've said a lot and I hope you enjoy it. So take care and bye-bye.